Joar, namaste, kia ora. Welcome. Picture in your mind, you're 23 years old. You're a professional mountaineer. You're trapped in a tiny ice cave on the summit of New Zealand's highest mountain. You are freezing. You are starving to death. You wake up in hospital. You look down the bed and your sheets end halfway down. You've just become a double amputee due to frostbite. What do you do next? Well, you climb Everest, of course. Today's about the catalyzing of change. You know, change is a catalyst. Well, I thought I'd theme it around the whole concept that it's actually around going from impossible to actually possible. Because to do that, you have to embrace change. That's the whole journey right there. It's the embracing of change and the taking on of a challenge, because that's integral into change. I guess to actually do that, you have to go right back to the beginning, and you have to have a dream. For me, my dream was to climb the highest mountains in the world, to climb some of the great peaks of the world, to follow in the footsteps of the great mountaineers. Well, I started that journey. I started it very young, actually. I started that when I was 11 or 12 years old in the mountains of New Zealand. And that journey, well, it carried me to fantastic places. You know, that was my cricket pitch. That was my rugby field. Then it became my job. That was the view out of my office window. As a young 18-year-old professional search and rescue mountaineer. It was a boy's own job. But with a lot of things in life, there are stumbling blocks that come along. There are the sort of hiccups that we have in life. And my hiccup came in November of 1982. I just summited our highest peak, up the grueling East Ridge, into the face of a fierce storm. Well, Phil and I had to get out of the weather. We climbed into this little ice cave. We climbed into that little ice cave and we sat there for 13 and a half days. The longest recorded spell of bad weather in New Zealand history. Do you know what 13 and a half days is? It's 1,166,400 seconds. And each of those seconds felt like an hour. But in each one of those seconds, we concentrated on staying alive. That was our job. It was a very unique situation. We survived because of faith in our own search and rescue team that was coming to get us. And we survived because of knowledge. And you need that when you're managing change. You need as much knowledge as you can. And that allowed us to survive. After all those seconds, we were rescued. We were rescued and we closed what we called Middle Peak Hotel. And we trucked away to hospital. We thought we'd lose a few toes, but we came to understand we'd lose an awful lot more. Those were my legs on Christmas Eve, 1982, just before they were amputated. We're talking change here today. Well, I have a gold standard for change, and that was that. It was that 9 o'clock in the morning as I got wheeled into theatre to have both them cut off. But along with change actually comes challenge. And the challenge for me was waking up on that Christmas day and that bed, the sheets ending halfway down. But I knew my challenge wasn't physical. My challenge was to actually learn how to think again. My challenge was to understand that for everything else in my life, you have to look for the opportunity first. How many times have we heard that today? Not the adversity. You have to be what I call the responsible optimist. That's the opportunist. That's not a guy that sees a glass half full or half empty. It's a guy that when he sees the glass, he drinks it. It's about going out and finding things. It's always looking for the opportunity, the advantage. When you look at that, I go to people, what do you see there? Do you see a double amputee, or do you see what I see? And what I see is a mountaineer who will never get frostbitten feet again. Don't have to worry about that one. Solve that. But I also see a person that wanted to get his dream back. And to do that, he had to take the first step.
The climbers have spent a week preparing and are ready to roll. But for one, the challenge is unique. Mark Inglis has a handicap that would stop most people from climbing a flight of stairs. Nevertheless, he intends to be the first man to summit Everest without legs. He's losing his voice in the thin air, but his new carbon fiber legs are working well.
I'll whip them off, dry the stumps off. Huge advantage to be able to do this partway through the day. Huge advantage. And it's working pretty damn well.
Well, they have to work well if you want to go there. Everest from the north, Everest from Tibet, that is a huge challenge. It's only 5 days climbing, but you have to be there for 60 days to acclimatise. It is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge both physically, mentally, emotionally, and all of those elements. And then just when you think you've got it worked out, you go for the summit. And you end up stepping into a place that's completely unknown for you. You step into a place that journalists love to call the death zone. Well, actually, I call it the must-do zone. Because above 8,000 metres, and I'm very privileged to be in this room with someone else who has stood there, it's not a place where you can take lightly. It's a place where every action, you must do it right. Well, that's the must-do zone. That's the last day on the north side of Everest. It's a very, very tough day. It's a tough day physically. It's a tough day emotionally. You will go past dead people. You will see death on that mountain. But if you want it, well, that's what you have to do. When you stand on the second step, right there in the center, when you stand on there, Everest is yours if you can answer 2 questions. The first question is, are you tough enough to take the next step? Because every step is an order of magnitude harder than the last. The other question, which is even more important, should you take that step? And that is the absolute core of why you go as a team on Everest. A team of people you can look around, look in the eye, and tell each other the truth. I was able to answer yes to both of those questions, and I took a few more steps.
90 minutes ahead, Mark Inglis conquers the last difficult traverse before the summit.
Yeah, we.
This is the last 50 metres. You take 5 steps, you stop and you try and suck some oxygen. You take another 5 steps.
After climbing on prosthetic legs for 47 days, Mark Inglis has made the summit of Everest. He's now the first man without legs to reach the top of the world.
And do you know what the first thing that people ask is? People go, what's the view like? And I go, I don't know. I was too tired. It was minus 38 degrees Celsius on the summit of Everest our day. For me, it was touch the top, look down on the other 8,000 meter peaks, look out at the curve of the earth, and then get out of there. Because the one thing that you understand when you stand on the summit of Everest, you're actually only halfway. Nearly all of the fatalities that happen on Everest happen on the way down. You haven't climbed a mountain until you get home. And it was a long, tough trip home. I'd done damage to my stumps. It took 10 days to get home to New Zealand. And in that 10 days, the only thing that I had as a vision in my mind's eye was my real team. And that's Lucy, Anne, Amanda, and Jerry. I sure hope each and every one of you have an incredible team like that behind you. Well, we can change our world. That's part of the reason we're here today. We're talking about change. And one of the things I'm passionate about is asset growth. Because that's what each and every one of us are. That's what our youth are. That's why I took on the role of Adventure Ambassador for Scouting. Because what we're doing is trying to grow our asset. To encourage them to take challenge. I've seen a lot of different situations. One actually, in Mumbai. One guy, Biju, has 4 buses. And he takes them around through one of the major slums. He feeds the kids, he educates them. They know the bus is going to be there at that same place every day. He is growing that asset. I've also had some other opportunities, actually. Have a look at this.
Before leaving base camp, Mark has some unfinished business.
Very nice to see you. See you again.
On a previous training climb in the Himalayas, Mark met Tile.
Tile and I are about the same age. We lost our legs in the same way. We both lost them through frostbite 20 odd years ago. The difference is that he's been walking around on his knees for 20 years.
As his old friend smiles in disbelief, Mark fits him up with a second chance.
This is one strong man. If anyone can do it, yeah, I think it's Tile here can do it.
I say that, he hadn't walked for 20 years, had no musculature left.
Tile is a very tall man.
It's very difficult to make a socket. But this is 2 hours after he first put his legs on, after 20 years.
He's coming around pretty quick, huh?
Yeah, he's going very well. Stand up straight. Yeah, that's it.
That's great.
Whoa!
And look at the smile on his face. It's worth $1 million.
This is the best high altitude physical therapy I've ever seen. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Tilly. Oh, he's happy. Oh, very happy. It's good to see someone up front.
He hasn't walked for 20 years. This must be like, a miracle for him.
Oh, it's been probably one of the best days of my life, really. I've always professed that one of the most important things you can do in life is to do some good for someone else. And today it's sort of tangible, really. So it's pretty neat, yeah.
See Tile stand up was far more important to me than standing on the summit of Everest. I know what it's like not to have legs. More importantly, I know what it's like to have legs. I'm not disabled because I have access to resources. Disability by definition should be either a lack of access to resources or a bad attitude. Wrong thinking. Tile had a fantastic attitude, but he had no access. I wanted to give Tile what I have. And that's an opportunity to live life in just a different way. It's not easier. It is much harder. But it is just an opportunity. Tile uses his legs like Sunday best now, you know. He still can't use them all the time. We haven't been able to get in and do more work on them, but we will shortly, I hope. But his friends that I meet over in Namchi that come across trading, they say, "Where's his Sunday best?" And I always remember, I asked him, "What does it mean to you, Tile?" And he said, "It means that I can now look someone in the eye." That for him meant more than anything. From there, we created Limbs for All. It's a very small charity. It's based in New Zealand. We work in Nepal and Cambodia predominantly. We can't do much, but I do know that every individual we help, we are making one step to changing the world. There is no such thing as impossible. Human beings can actually do anything if we really want to. The worst thing I hear in the English language is people that don't understand the difference between I can't and I won't. We can actually do virtually anything. There are just some things that we don't want to or shouldn't do. And the other, a piece of grammar. How often do you think I had people come up to me and ask, why? Why go climbing? Why go to the Paralympics in Sydney and win a medal? Why do all these things? And my answer, of course, is, why not? That's the attitude that we all need to take forward, because that's the thing that catalyzes change. There should never be an impossible if we embrace change. That's the critical element. And the things that I do, the mountains I climb, so much of it isn't for me. So much of it isn't to show what I can do. So much of it is to show the potential of what we all can do. I know we've talked about a wee bit about soccer today, and we're going to talk a bit about soccer later on. My most inspiring view of soccer was this little guy. I was privileged to be there the day that he got his legs. He went down those bars, and he got down, and there was a soccer ball sitting there, and you can imagine the first thing he did, he's someone that's going to take change, and he's going to be a catalyst. He's going to be a catalyst for his whole generation. Gee, I think T.S. Eliot said it better than I ever could. It's only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far you can go. That is change. That is being the catalyst. That's what we're here for today. I was privileged to stand there on the 15th of May 2006 and look at the sunrise. But the thing I was actually seeing wasn't that. The thing I was seeing was the ability to do so much more. That's what you get from the summit of Everest. That's what you get from the summit of all of your achievements. I will never be the equal of an able-bodied mountaineer, but I know I can be the equal of any mountain I choose. Thank you.